What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A24 4G and the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G. Now, as always, if you end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the A24, we're getting a 6.5-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 396, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. With the A14, we're getting a slightly larger 6.6-inch PLS LCD display, and this phone also has a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 400, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So in general, these displays are pretty similar, but I feel like the A24 has a bit more of an advantage. While on one hand, the A14 is again a tiny bit larger, at 6.6 inches versus 6.5. The A24 does have the Super AMOLED display, which is going to make the colors a bit richer and more vibrant. The display is slightly brighter, and the viewing angles are a lot better. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, or really in any kind of bright area, the A24 will be easier to see. But in general, I feel like the difference is not really that much, and for what they are, both phones do have really good displays. So if you are maybe consuming a lot of content, for example, you're not going to go wrong with either. Now for storage, both phones have 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so plenty of storage here. Considering these are both entry-level 4G phones, most phones like this are going to have maybe 64 if not 32 worst case scenario. So for more affordable phones, getting this much storage is definitely nice. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners right here on the power keys. So pretty standard Samsung Galaxy A series stuff, but of course definitely nice to get both options. But now starting with the A24, let's give the fingerprint scanners a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the A14. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners worked real well. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A24, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we get a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. And with the A14, we have literally the exact same camera setup. Up front, 13 megapixel selfie camera, then on the back, 50 megapixel main camera, 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So yeah, obviously no real difference here, but I will say when it comes to actual photo quality, there is a slight difference, with the A24 being a bit better in my opinion. So if you are taking a lot of pictures, then I do think the A24 will have an advantage, but honestly, the A14 is really not bad either, so it could go either way. And for video, both phones have a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so no 4K here, but not really surprising, considering these are both lower-end 4G phones. Now to give you an idea of what the cameras can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the A24. So overall, great photo quality here, especially considering, again, this is a 4G phone you can get for under $200. So for such an affordable device, I do think the photo quality is really good, and for most people, for things you're typically going to be using your camera for, like social media, sending photos to friends and family and stuff like that, it will definitely get the job done. And then here's some pictures taken with the A14, and really same kind of thing, but I feel like between the two, in my opinion, the A24 is a bit better, despite them having pretty much the same camera setup, so definitely keep this in mind. But at the same time, it's not like the experience is really going to be that much different at the end of the day, so if you get the A14, it's not like you're going to be missing out on too much. But if it were me, if you're trying to decide between the two, if the camera quality is really important to you, I would personally go with the A24, but at the same time, as you can see here, the photo quality with the A14 is at least pretty good too, so I feel like either camera here will be okay for the average user. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A24, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio G99 processor. With the A14, we're also getting 4GB of RAM with this phone too, with the MediaTek Helio G80. Now, I will say when it comes to performance, there is a pretty big difference between the two, with the A24 being significantly faster. And honestly, not only this, but for what it is, I was definitely not expecting this phone to be nearly as fast as it is, because again, keep in mind, this is a phone you can get for less than $200, and it's not even a 5G phone. phone, but I have found it to be even faster than some entry-level 5G phones. So if that is important to you, definitely keep this in mind. And on the other hand, with the A14, honestly, this is really not a very fast phone, so if you are going to be on your device a lot doing more demanding activities like mobile gaming and stuff like that, you are going to want to go with the A24 because the A14, while not being super slow, is definitely not fast either. And the more you're using the phone, the more you're going to see this. Now I ran a benchmark test on each phone here using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So as you can see, again, there's really no question here. The A24 has a huge advantage. So if you are looking for something that's a bit faster, then I would definitely go with the A24. But if you're really just more of a light user, if you're looking for something for super basic activities like light web browsing and social media, or maybe watching the occasional YouTube video or listening to music, for that kind of activity, despite not being nearly as fast as the A24, the A14 will still at least get the job done. Now for the batteries, both phones have 5000 mAh batteries, with the A24 supporting 25 watt fast charging and the A14 supporting 15. So definitely great batteries here. When it comes to charging speed, the A14 will be obviously a bit faster, but keep in mind to actually fully utilize any phone's fast charging, you will need a 25 watt fast charger, or in the case of the A14, a 15 watt fast charger. And keep in mind, neither phone here comes with any kind of wall adapter at all, so you will have to get your own. But in general, aside from the charging speed, both phones are going to have great battery life, so if that is a concern for you, you won't go wrong with either one. And then down the road, as the batteries degrade, which all batteries of course will eventually, you're not going to notice it with these phones nearly as quickly as you would with a much smaller battery. So if you want to keep your phone for a longer time without having to replace it, either phone here will be great for that. For the software, both phones have Android 13, which is really not surprising. And in addition to this, keep in mind, Samsung does have really good software support. So with either device, you can expect to get several major updates in the future. Both phones will be getting Android 14, 15, 16, and 17. So yeah, if the software is important to you, definitely great choices here. But when it comes to other features, also keep in mind, with the A24, we are getting NFC. Whereas unfortunately, the A14 does not have NFC. So if you like to use tap and pay, you will want to go with the A24. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, it's probably pretty clear that the A24 is better in pretty much every way. Now, granted, there is some overlap here, like for example, the displays are pretty similar, the batteries are almost the same, the software obviously is basically the same, and the cameras are really similar too. But that being said, in every way where there's a significant difference, the A24 is the better device. This phone is a lot faster, and I mean really by a lot. It also has the Super AMOLED, which again is going to give you slightly better image quality. The fast charging is a bit better. In my opinion, the photo quality is noticeably better. And it also does have NFC too, which in this day and age, seeing as tap and pay is becoming so much more popular and widely used, I really personally feel like every smartphone in 2023 really should have NFC. So unless you never see yourself ever using tap and pay, I do think this is important to think about. Now, that being said, if you really are looking for a super basic device for really light use, maybe you don't care about NFC, and you really just want something affordable that works, the A14 is still really not a bad choice, but I feel like considering the A24 is really not that much more, this phone will be a much better choice in most situations. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A24 4G and the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.